Today I'm going to answer your questions on career and consulting topics. On my Instagram channel, Firm Learning, I recently asked you to submit the questions that you want to have answered by me. I already directly answered many of them on my Instagram channel, but still there were some questions that many people asked. And I want to use this video to answer these questions for this broader audience because I know and I trust that many of you guys are asking yourself the same questions. So welcome to another coffee break here on my channel Firm Learning. My name is Heinrich and here on my channel Firm Learning I want to help you to become successful in the first years of your career. So I will now always read out the questions here on my phone, and the first question is: can non-native Germans enter into McKinsey in Germany with C1 level German? And here questions like this now always I will answer with a more general type of approach, so not talking about specific firms but rather, for instance, MBB firms in general. And the answer here is that yes, you do not need to be a native German to work at a German MBB firm, and this is true for most other European countries as well. Indeed, the two requirements that will be required from you are first that usually you will need to have a valid work permit, a valid work visa to actually be able to work in the country, and second, you will need to have local language skills. So not necessarily on a native level, but at least on a business proficiency level. So C1 should usually qualify for that. Next question: is it worth doing an MBA even though I have a PhD and 3 years of consulting experience? And here now I want to generalize this to the question: is it worth to do an MBA, right? Especially if you already have lots of academic experience. And here I'd say it very much depends on your goals. So usually just to advance in your career, I do not think that an MBA is necessarily required. However, where an MBA can help you is to make a transition in your career. So whenever you feel like you are stuck in a specific area in your career, then the MBA is like the joker card that you can pull out once in your life, and that can really help you to make that transition. And I already once made a video about that, how exactly this works. I will link it somewhere above here, so check it out to learn more about this. Is it possible to get into MBB with an extremely low GPA and I have 3 years of experience? So let's just say it will be extremely difficult, especially if your GPA is really low. So I'd say if your GPA maybe is average but not super stellar, then it already will be tough. But probably you can compensate that if some other parts of your profile are really stellar. But if your GPA is really low, then again, I don't want to say it's impossible. Maybe if you're really a genius, a superstar, and this comes through your application by other areas of your profile, then maybe you have a shot. But for most people, I consider it really difficult and probably, unfortunately, not realistic. How would you go about getting an internship at one of the big 4 consulting firms? And here I don't think there's some kind of magic trick that you need to have, right? And what you need to understand is that these firms often have highly professional recruiting processes. So while of course it might help if you already know a consultant and he can then directly forward your application to HR, you should be able to assume that with these firms you can just apply via the online form and your application will be treated professionally, and if you fulfill the criteria then you will be invited. And indeed, when I applied to MBB, I always just used the regular application form. I didn't have any insider contacts in these firms, and this worked out really well for me, and it will work for you as well if you fulfill, of course, the criteria. How hard is it to get in McKinsey after your bachelor? And indeed, now generalizing it now for all the MBB firms, so usually you can assume that if you have a bachelor, the hurdles to get in are pretty similar than if you have a pre-experienced master. Therefore, it can be a bit tougher to get in with only a bachelor because the criteria against you are measured are very similar compared to if you start with a master. But as you will be 1 or 2 years earlier in your development, both from the personal side but maybe also from the internships that you have completed, you will need to have achieved more in the rather short time span of the bachelor to be invited to the interview and then to get in. Therefore, it's not impossible, but yes, I guess you can argue that it's a bit more challenging. Are MBAs mandatory to get into MBB? No, not at all. This is not at all mandatory, and especially in countries like Germany, MBAs are still quite uncommon. Just most people don't do an MBA, so people are regularly hired at MBB MBB firms without an MBA. But even in the US or other countries where MBAs are more common, you can absolutely start with a bachelor, with an undergraduate degree in a business analyst position, and you will get in. And an MBA by no means is a hard requirement. What is the best book that I've read recently? So here I can recommend you to check out my book recommendations. You find a link to that below in the video description. There are linked to a page with all the books that I can really recommend. And of course, some of them I've also read recently. Do you think there might be a valid reason to go for a tier 2 instead of a tier 1? So here, of course, people might have very personal reasons to choose certain firms. And of course, personal fit might play a role as well. But I believe that for most candidates, there's not really a reason why you should join a tier 2 if you have the opportunity to join a tier 1. And the reason is that in terms of work-life balance, in terms of overall working experience, they are quite similar. But in tier 1 firms, you will often have the opportunity to work for slightly more relevant and important projects. Also, the support that you get via the whole back office infrastructure is larger, so you can focus more as a consultant on the key consulting topics. And lastly, the brand value for your CV, but also your exit opportunities after your work will be slightly better in tier 1 firms compared to tier 2 firms. This is at least my opinion. What are advantages or disadvantages of doing a master? And here I think the answer is pretty similar to advantages or disadvantages of doing an MBA. And here I also did a video about that. I will link it somewhere here above. But in general, the cost of doing a master are twofold. First, it's an investment of time. And second, it's an investment of money. So you need to ask yourself whether these two types of investments are worth it. The investment of time will usually be compensated if you're able to start one step higher if you start in the workforce with a master compared to a bachelor. And at least for all the consulting firms, this is usually the case. Usually you start one level higher with a master, and therefore you can compensate for the loss of time by already being one step further ahead in your career journey. Especially if you work in a private university, you will need to pay student fees. But then the second factor of it is also that in this time you will not earn money, right? So you miss the salary. So this of course can add up to quite a high sum. But again, if the master opens up career opportunities for you which might have not been available with your bachelor, or maybe also the knowledge that you acquire via your master will then really help you to be successful in the long term, then this might easily be overcompensated throughout the lifespan of your career. So keep these two things in mind, but my personal opinion is that if you do a master at a target university with good grades, usually this will be worth the investment in the long term in most cases. What do I do for a living? Did I quit consulting? And if yes, why? So yes, I quit consulting about a year ago. I worked with McKinsey, but now left the firm since then. And the reasons I detailed in another video where I talk about what things are that I didn't learn in consulting. And I will also link it somewhere above. So overall, I'm super grateful and thankful for my time at MBB. It was an amazing experience. And I do believe that consulting is a great career choice for many young business graduates out there. But still, I felt that after these years, I wanted to do something slightly more operational. So I joined a German retail company in a CTO position. So I'm working in this new career since about a year. And of course, in parallel, I now also started this YouTube channel. If you have more questions that now were not answered here in this video, feel free to leave me a comment below in the comment section, and I will do my very best to answer every single one. If you took any value out of this video at all, please smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and also subscribe to this channel to stay up to date on my content. I release weekly videos every single Saturday. If you want to see even more from me and potentially also contribute to future Q&A sessions, you can follow me on my Instagram. My handle is Firm Learning. And I also have a mailing list. You can find a sign up link to that mailing list below in the video description. I want to take a moment to also thank all the sponsors of my channel. Without all of you guys, it wouldn't be possible what I do. So thank you so much. And if you are thinking about becoming a sponsor as well and get access to some great member-only, sponsor-only perks, you can sign up via the join button that is next to the subscribe button. So have a look at that. I'd love you to become a member, and I would be super thankful for your support. So big thanks to all of you for watching. I very much appreciate it, and I see you again next Saturday. Bye bye.